Welcome back to our ongoing series of the Mandela Effect and the Bible, Easter edition. This one genuinely surprised me. I just learned this not that long ago, so I'm excited to share it now. We all know the story of the crucifixion, right? Jesus is convicted. He is forced to carry his cross down the Via Dolorosa. He is beaten, exhausted, falling under the weight. And eventually the soldiers grab a bystander, Simon of Cyrene, to carry the cross the rest of the way. Except that story is not in the Bible. That entire sequence, Jesus collapsing, being too weak, Simon stepping in to finish the job, that is all a later construction. It's mostly from sermons, harmonizations, and especially modern movies. So let's slow down and actually look at the texts themselves. Hey everyone, I'm Colin, the resident nerd and Bible scholar here at the Bible Uncut and Unfiltered. Let's start with Matthew. Matthew 27, verses 31 to 32. And after that they had mocked him, they took the robe from off of him and put his own raiment on him and led him away to crucify him. And as they came out, they found a man of Kurene, that would be a closer to original pronunciation of what we usually say as Cyrene, Kurene. So they found this man of Kurene, Simon by name, him they compelled to bear his cross. That's it. No mention of Jesus carrying the cross first, no collapse, no fainting, just Simon. And since most scholars agree that Matthew and Luke use Mark as a source, it shouldn't surprise us that Mark says basically the same thing. Let's look at Mark 15, 20 to 21. And when they had mocked him, they took off the purple from him and put his own clothes on him and led him away to crucify him. And they compel one Simon a Kurenean, who passed by, coming out of the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to bear his cross. So again, Simon is forced to carry the cross. Still no Jesus carrying it. Same thing with Luke as well. Let's look at Luke 23:26. And as they led him away, they lay hand on one Simon a Kurenean, coming out of the country, and on him they laid the cross, that he might bear it after Jesus. So this verse reads that Simon is seized and made to carry the cross behind Jesus. And if you're reading something like the King James Version, an older version like I had there, it might say that Simon carried it after Jesus. But that word is not chronological, rather it is spatial. It does not mean that Jesus first carried it and then afterwards Simon did. It means that Simon walked behind Jesus, following after him down the road. So once again, no Jesus carrying the cross, only Simon. So where did we get this idea that Jesus carried the cross? Well, John. Because of course it's John. Whenever there's a difference amongst the Gospels that big, it's probably due to something John wrote. Let's look at what he writes in John 19:17. And he, that's Jesus he's talking about here, bearing his cross, went forth into a place called the place of a skull, which is called in the Hebrew, Golgotha. So, in John's account, there's no Simon, no help. Jesus carries it all the way himself. And that's it. The Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, only mention Simon carrying the cross. John only mentions Jesus carrying it. Nowhere in the New Testament does it say that Jesus collapsed, grew too weak, or needed someone else to finish the job. Feel free to read all of the surrounding verses to double check me on this. That story comes from us trying to smooth out the differences between the Synoptics and John. Most American Christians have been taught to read their Bibles univocally, as if it speaks with one single flattened voice. So differences get ironed out, tensions get harmonized, everything has to fit together neatly. And I get why we do it. Humans love simplicity. It feels safer to believe every detail lines up perfectly than to sit with complexity. But the Bible is not a univocal text. A multivocal reading lets each author tell their story in the way that they were inspired by God to tell it, without forcing them into agreement. It treats the differences as meaningful instead of embarrassing. So what are the Gospels doing here? Well, with the Synoptics, Simon matters. Did you catch that Mark even named Simon's sons? Alexander and Rufus. Some Christian traditions suggest that they became known figures in the early Jesus movement. Naming Simon may have been a way of grounding the story in a living memory. Mark saying, you know this family, go ask them if you don't believe me. Now, we can't know that for sure, but it is a common tradition. Historically, crucifixions were public humiliating events. Romans often forced civilians to participate as a form of intimidation. Simon may have even been a Jewish pilgrim from North Africa in town for the Passover. Or he could have been a Gentile who just stood out and got unlucky. Either way, he becomes a stand-in for us in the story. He is an ordinary person caught up in state violence, forced to carry the weight of an execution he didn't choose. Like Rembrandt painting himself into the raising of the cross, Simon lets us see ourselves in the story. John, though, is doing something totally different. John has the highest Christology of all the Gospels. Most scholars believe it was the latest written of our Gospels and also the most overtly theological. John's Jesus is in control from beginning to end. That's why John skips the birth story and goes all the way back to creation itself. That's why John's Jesus speaks in cosmic poetry. That's why John wouldn't want Jesus needing help in the very end. See, in John's Gospel, Jesus carries the cross himself, because John's Jesus is never overpowered. Even in death, he is sovereign. So here's the point. The Bible didn't forget to tell us the whole story. We added one. And when we do that, we miss what each gospel is actually trying to tell us. The synoptics invite us into the story through Simon's eyes, ordinary people entangled in violence. John shows us a Jesus who walks knowingly toward death, unbroken and unafraid. Both are doing theology. Both are telling the truth as they are inspired to tell it. The problem isn't that the Bible has differences. The problem is when we are afraid to let it. Because when we stop flattening the texts, we don't lose faith, we gain depth. And maybe the real Mandela Effect isn't misremembering the story. Maybe it's forgetting that God never asked the Bible to sound like it was written by one voice in the first place.